Hey everybody, it's Ari from Literary Gladiators. Haven't seen you guys for a while, but I'm really glad to be back here with an individual video for you guys on a book that I've just read. Came out in 2022. It is a middle grade horror novel. It's called Riley's Ghost by John David Anderson. This is about a girl named Riley who is struggling like a lot of teenagers do, and she gets into an altercation with one of the more popular girls in school, and because of that altercation, she basically slaps her in the face. Riley slaps the girl in the face. The girl gets angry, locks Riley in a supply closet. But when Riley gets out of the supply closet, she can't leave the school. She tries everything she can to leave, and she can't. And then she realizes this dissected frog is talking to her, as a ghost is talking to a medium, and she's trying to figure out why she can't leave, and why everything is kind of closed off to her, and who this ghost is that's talking to her, how another ghost is involved, and all kinds of other things. So this is a spoiler review. So I will be giving spoilers in this review just for everyone at home who is listening. So Riley is a troubled teenage girl. She recently had a friend named Emily, but they kind of fell out a little bit, and you kind of find out throughout the book that this happened. It doesn't happen immediately. One of the things I really like about John David Anderson's writing, at least in this book, is that the chapters switch every single chapter. You have a chapter about what's going on in the present, where the horror things are happening, and she's talking to the dissected frog ghost, and she's finding out about the other ghost that's keeping her in the school, and all kinds of other stuff like that. And it'll immediately switch to a chapter of something that happened in the past that affected Riley as a teenager now, and how it affects her friendships, and it'll switch back to the present horror again. And I think that switch, I think some people might find it very jarring, but I think it's done so well, and the chapters are just long enough that it does not feel jarring. It feels like you're getting multiple pieces of information at once, both past and present. And I think that John David Anderson does a fantastic job of doing this. Now, the ghost of the dissected frog, which we're just going to refer it to as that because that's what he usually uses, that vessel throughout the book. His name is Maxwell Trotter, and Riley kind of learns a little bit about Max, but he is clearly not the bad ghost in the situation. He's not the ghost that is directing her down certain hallways or into certain scenarios in the school at the time. He's kind of just there, and she's trying to figure out, well, what's the full story with Max? Why has he come back? And it turns out that the ghost in the school, we'll call her Heather because that's her name, but there's the ghost in the school is kind of pointing her in the direction of the library yearbooks. And she looks in the 1988 yearbook, sees that Heather is there, and then in 89 she's missing. And it is an interesting mystery as to why Heather has gone missing and what her connection with Max is. And it turns out that Heather has very similar troubling qualities, or had similar troubling qualities as Riley does now. So the ghost selected her because of that feeling. And although this is spoilers, I'm not going to give away the whole ending, but I will say that that Heather, it's not like a good ghost, bad ghost thing. It definitely starts out that way, where you think that Max is like a good ghost and that Heather's a bad one, but it takes a turn later and different things happen. But it's a story of unrequited love, and it's a story of going through difficult teenage years, both for Heather in the past and Riley in the present. And there are some scenes in this that are a little bit violent. Obviously, Riley slapping the cheerleader at the beginning is, of course, violent. There's a scene where she cuts her hand on some glass, and it's kind of graphic. But I think Anderson keeps it at such a level where it's not too much, but it also drives the points home as well. So, it also tells a lot of stories about Riley's past. As I was saying, each chapter goes from present to past to present to past. So it talks about how Riley got in this predicament in the first place, how she's feeling about middle school, how she's feeling about her friends. I'm putting friends in quotes because in middle school it's very difficult to discern that. And overall, it's phenomenally written. Now, John David Anderson has also written a couple other middle grade novels, including one that I am planning on reading at some time called Posted, which if I do a review on that, I will let you guys know. It's not horror. It's more middle grade where the ability to use phones and computers is completely taken away, and the only way they can communicate is through Post-its, but we'll get to that another time. I, as a horror reader, highly recommend, and I mean highly recommend, Riley's Ghost. I actually go so far to say that I'd give this a 5 out of 5 stars. It is one of my favorite horror books that I've read, even despite it being middle grade. Now, when I say middle grade, it's a little bit closer to 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade, with like 10 plus, I would say, would be my range. With 4th and 5th grade, maybe exercise a little bit of caution before passing this book on to someone who's in 4th and 5th grade. I think once you get to like 6th, 7th grade, because Riley is a 7th grader, so it can kind of feel like that. But with a couple violent scenes and a couple mentions of some things that are not entirely appropriate, I would keep it like 10 plus or 11 plus in that range. But I would highly recommend Riley's Ghost. I think John David Anderson wrote this very well. I love the past present mechanic. Riley is a very well fleshed out character because she really is, for the majority of the book, she is by herself, and you only get the writing from Riley. Another interesting thing that I wanted to mention about this book is that it tackles death and memory in a very interesting way. The climax of the story has a scene where Max tries to burn some letters that were stuck inside of a locker for many years that Heather had written, but it's actually Riley who decides that it's important to hang on to these memories rather than to pass them off and forget them and essentially burn them. She actually brings out a Bunsen burner and is about to do that. And it's important to hang on to memories, whether they were positive or negative, feelings, whether they're positive or negative. This book also kind of delves into that a little bit. Again, don't want to give away too much at the ending, but do suggest that you read this book. I got my copy from the public library in my town. You can probably find it on Amazon and in your local library or bookstore. So just to say it again, the title is Riley's Ghost by John David Anderson. Highly recommend, and I give it a full deserved 5 out of 5 stars for sure. One of my favorite general horror books that I've read in many years. And this came out in 2022, so it's not that old, but it's really good. Anyway, I'm Ari from Literary Gladiators. Thanks for joining me, and keep reading, and definitely pick up this book, for sure.